Hey y'all, just got done with today's workout. It was a fun one. It was 14 minutes on the clock. You go for a 400-meter run. When you get back in, you do a max set of double dumbbell thrusters at a heavy weight. After you're done with that set, another 400-meter run, max set. So technically, if you're going to keep a score today, your score would be the total number of thrusters. If I was doing this if I was programming competition or something, I would also give for every 10 meters on the run a rep. That way, if you get stuck being done with thrusters, look at the clock, and you don't have enough time to do another round and thrusters, it still motivates you to continue through the whole 14 minutes. But anyway, with the dumbbells and going to failure or a max set on thrusters, I really wouldn't be taking it to failure anyway. But let's first talk about the runs. So what we want is if you've got a sub 7.5 minute mile, then 400 meters is an appropriate distance. You just come out today kind of pacing, going nice and steady. That first run, like a lot of these workouts, there's usually a trap in the beginning of the workout. So remember, 14 minutes is a long time. We can't come out sprinting on that first run, especially knowing that we're going to have to come back in, gather ourselves for a big set of the dumbbell thrusters. So just nice and smooth on the first run. All the runs kind of after that turn out to be recovery. So I know if you're someone who doesn't like running, you're probably freaking out right now a little bit, hearing that the runs on this workout are recovery. But that's kind of the reality of it, is you got to find a way to breathe, gather yourself, and continue moving forward at the same time. So this is not a push the pace on the run type of workout. So if your mile time's in between the 7.5 and 10 minute range, I would recommend just doing 300-meter runs. And then if it's 10 minutes or above, I would just do 200-meter runs. That'll put you, if you're running just smooth and kind of slowish, that'll put those runs at about 2 minutes. And then that'll give us the appropriate number of rounds and time spent here with the dumbbells. On the thrusters, like I said, I wouldn't take them to absolute failure. I would take it to technique failure. If we had a barbell, we could take it a little closer to muscle fatigue failure, because we have one thing that both of our arms can create torque off of, so we have a closed system. But the dumbbells, it's an open system, so each one is doing its own thing. So for that reason, it's a little easier for that technique to get sloppy, especially as we get closer and closer to muscle fatigue. So what I did is I made the sets hurt for sure, but I was sitting there, and as soon as my technique started to slip, I really worked hard to either keep it there or improve it. And then as soon as it started to slip more, that's where I kind of called it quits. So each round when I called it quits, if someone had put a gun to my head and said, $1 million if you do 10 more, I probably could have done 10 whole reps more. This was still a super fatiguing workout, long cardio, kind of had that dizziness and then trying to get back from it feeling. So you don't have to go to absolute failure to get there. So put the focus more on the technique failure side of things. With the thrusters too, what I like to do is I don't like to hang out overhead. My mobility isn't 100% there with the upper back yet. I've been working on it hard and it's come so far, but it's not 100% there. So some people who have that full range of motion might be able to give it a little bit of a pause overhead as a resting point. For I think most people with dumbbells, with a barbell you might be able to pull it off, but for most people with dumbbells, it's probably a good idea just to go to that end range and then get into that next rep. And what I like to think about is just being smooth until I get to the top, and then I just give it a little drive there and then try and get it into. So I'm not trying to drive out of the bottom, trying to stay smooth out of the bottom to control my heart rate and only get that hip drive up at the top of the thrusters. So I was able to get 4 rounds of thrusters in. I ran into a FedEx driver, a neighbor, a construction worker. So I ran into 3. I think there's a 4th person out there. So I'm at home, so it's kind of like taking a conference call at work from home. And there's always a dog or construction where there's always something going on that you have to make an excuse for. So I ran into some people out there. So what I'm thinking is most people today are going to get 3 rounds of the thrusters to 5 max. I think you really have to be pushing the runs hard if you're going to get 5 rounds of thrusters in. I got 4. I got cut off at the tail end of my 4th. And so even though I was getting kind of caught up with people that it probably wasted at least a minute or two, that still would have been pushing it to finish that set, get a whole nother round in and get back in. So I think for most people, you're looking at 4 rounds of the thrusters, just to kind of put that into perspective. I think my numbers were around the 20-ish range for the first 2 rounds, and then maybe like the 15-ish, and then I got cut off on time, but I was at 12. And then on that last round, I was just going to go for a big set there and kind of just see what happens. But again, pace the runs, make them look good. On the thrusters, just make them look good. You don't need to take it to muscle failure. You just need to take it to technique failure. Try and improve, try and improve. If you can't, that's where you should call it quits. Just go for the run. But today is really going to test your ability to pace your run and recover on it. So just kind of be ready for that and really put your mental effort into focusing on using those runs for recovery. All right, hope that helps. Talk to y'all soon.